Let's check the mic. We are live. This is January the 14th. I don't think it's our first live of 2022, but it might as well be. This is going to be one of the bigger ones because I have a whole bunch of questions from our elite members. So, with that being said, I'm going to kind of start a little bit with today's topic, and then we'll get into member questions because I've got a lot of questions from members that you guys have been sending me over the week. So I'm going to get to those questions first. So if you've got a question for me and you're an elite member on dog training or just something in general, don't put it in the chat yet, because I am going to be going through all the many questions that have already been sent on email, because I have to give that priority because, you know, people took the time. All right. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'll just give people a chance to join, and then we'll get going. Let's see here. Just queuing up all the many questions. You guys sent me a ton of questions. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm going to start now with the topic on. Sorry, guys. Let me just pull up the YouTube stream here. I'm going to start first with the topic on can't speak properly. Is this working, guys, or are we breaking up here? How's the internet? Hi, Mary. How are you? I got something good for you, Mary, by the way. You got to send me that paper. Send me that paper on DAC, and I think I've got a good solution for you. But that's another story altogether. Okay, the streaming's working. All right, good. Okay, guys, so let's talk about Uncharted dog training. All right, and I think I've kind of talked about it before, but let's talk about it again, because I think that this is an area where so many people, they just misunderstand, or they what's the word? People make dog training so much more complicated than it really is. I think in this day and age, you know, you can find information on a lot of aspects of dog training. You can find, you know, the optimal rate of positive reinforcement, you know, reward delivery, you know, playing with thresholds. There's all sorts of information on dog training, you know, the positive only type training or just primarily positive training. You can find that online. And then you can also find, you know, a lot of information on people using pressure in training, whether it's an e-collar, a prong collar, or something like that, or just leash pressure, anything like that. You know, you can find a lot of that information online. What you can't find online is the real common sense stuff, the stuff that's passed down. And I find that the world of dog training, common sense stuff, just understanding the animal that you're dealing with, is becoming less and less common. And it's one of those things where it's like a lot of your problems, a lot of the solutions to your problems are going to be solved by dealing with things from a common sense perspective and understanding the animal that you're dealing with. Okay, you're dealing with a dog. Okay, and these are primal creatures. These are creatures that act on instinct. They act on genetic predisposition. Same with horse training. Yes, exactly. It is exactly. And horses, I find that people are a little bit less stupid with horses, or maybe I'm misconstruing it, but I find that a lot of horse trainers, horses, maybe they're not as forgiving, so they just won't put up with your nonsense. You know, you either can ride the horse, you can train the horse, or you can't. And there's not a lot of room for make believe with the horse. I think with dogs there is a little bit more room because they live in the house with you. They're very they're members of the family, so to speak. And I was reflecting on this today because I was hanging out with a few other dog trainers that I know and like, and we were talking about an old school dog trainer that we all know, and he's in the sport of IGP. He also breeds dogs, and we were talking about this guy, and because he's famous for always having like really strong dogs. Everybody knows, when this guy has a dog, it's a strong dog to put up with, the stuff that the way he trains. Like, he's not a soft trainer. He's a very tough guy. He doesn't train for the public. He trains for himself. And we were talking about, like what somebody that was recently with him was like, yeah, I saw this guy walk through the hotel lobby. His dog was off leash. The dog was obedient to him. There was no collars, no nothing on the dog. And for him, that was normal, right? It was normal. And it's a very strong, type of dog. This is not like your typical, soft pet dog. It's a serious dog. And I remember when I saw this guy a couple years ago, like same thing. He had 2 intact males. And again, tough dogs, strong dogs. And they were next to each other. No, they were, he tied them to the same tree. Stuff like you would never think those 2 males could be together. And for him, they were together because he wouldn't tolerate it any other way. And this is something where I kind of maybe showed a little bit in that video where I was walking some females together. And I kind of was talking a little bit about the mentality when you're managing a group of dogs, what you need to do in order to keep order in that group. Because as I've said before, everybody's always looking for the magic. You're looking for the rainbows. You're looking for the cool little technique or something, right? Oh, maybe if I give the treat like this, or if I push the e-collar like this. A lot of fundamental behavior, okay? Just in order for your dog to behave, just fundamental behavior, you don't use any fancy techniques for this. You don't use any fancy devices or tools for this. This comes directly from you. And that's something that's being lost. I see this time and time again where people struggle with just making fundamental behaviors with their dogs. He's reactive, he's this, he's that. And it's like, why? Why do you allow this? Why have you decided that this is something that you're going to allow? Any behavior your dog exhibits, unless it's on the very extreme end of the spectrum, it's your fault, right? Like you've said, this is acceptable. But I don't have the e-collar, I don't have his treats, I don't have this, I don't have that. That's the problem right there. Because you have created these kind of impediments to you actually dealing with the problem. You got 2 hands, you've got a voice, you've got 2 feet, you've got a head. Use all those things and get your dog behaving, right? There's no, he doesn't like, or he won't do, or, when we're talking about creating behaviors, okay, like heeling, sit down, whatever. Okay, here's where we can talk about dog training techniques. Here's where we can talk about, reward delivery and e-collar and what a leash and this and that. We can talk about all that type of stuff when we're talking about creating maybe artificial behaviors that we're going to use, in the work with the dog, okay? But when we're talking about the fundamental baseline behavior of your dog, how he behaves in the house, how he behaves in public around other dogs, what are you allowing? What are you allowing, and why are you allowing it? I see so many dog handlers stand there, and they're just, they're just like a deer in the headlights while their dog's acting the fool. It's just unbelievable to me, and I'm like, why are you allowing this? It's not okay. For me, I don't need any tools on my dog. Hey, knock it off. Don't do that. I'm talking to him the same way a dog talks to him. Have you ever watched dogs together? They are savage creatures. Now, I'm a human being, so I don't have to be as savage as a dog, obviously. But, a lot of the people, the positive only trainers, so on and so forth, right? They would have you believe that somehow it's natural to bribe a dog or to avoid stress at all costs in training. And there's nothing that's less natural than that. If you ever watch dogs habitually kill each other. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you're going to be doing that. Obviously, we're not doing that. But dogs, when they communicate with each other, okay, when they deal with each other, when they resolve conflict with each other, it is not a gentle process. It is not a process bereft of stress, all right? Dogs are very direct in their communication. And I find that most humans run themselves in circles, endless circles, trying not to be direct because they're afraid to be direct. Now, I don't think this was a problem, 50, 60 years ago. I don't think my business would be half as booming as it is 50, 60 years ago. But it sure as heck is becoming a problem in this day and age. Now, I call this uncharted territory because this is something that maybe a lot of trainers know. A lot of trainers know how to deal with this type of stuff. I shouldn't say a lot of trainers know. A lot of people do know how to deal with it. That being said, it's not something anybody's written in a book. It's not something I really see people making, online content about. If you've taken my reactive course, right, you know that, that reactive course that I put out, that's probably the most realist, talk about how to actually deal with behavioral problems that you're ever going to find. I don't know any other dog trainer that's going to put that on the internet, right? There's dog trainers that do plenty more stuff than that, but they're not going to put that on the internet. Because of course, that kind of stuff it's what's the word? It's not politically correct in this day and age. In this day and age, it's more politically correct to talk about, bribing a dog with liver treats or using an e-collar than it is to talk about fundamental, direct communication with the dog. Physical communication, verbal communication, whatever kind of communication you want to talk about, right? It's something where I don't think anybody else has put anything like that out. I just can't see it. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That being said, this is uncharted territory because you're not going to find this content in a book and you're not going to find it online, right? Now, I'm not going to come on here and say everything, obviously, that I would do with a reactive dog or with an aggressive dog because that can vary depending on the circumstances. But all you're going to find when it comes to uncharted territory, basically applying any kind of pressure or positive punishment to a dog, all you're going to find online is half-truths, partial information at best, and most commonly, misinformation. That's what you're going to find. Tons and tons of misinformation. You Google correcting your dog. I guarantee you the first 10 results are going to be bad. You YouTube, correcting your dog. Probably at least 90% of those videos are going to be absolute nonsense, and the other 10% are either going to be partial information, which sometimes is really not good, or terrible information that's going to actually get you hurt. I posted that video of the dog that was food aggressive, and I had people so sure that I just lit the dog up with an e-collar for being food aggressive. I'm like, why do you think I would have to resort to an e-collar to fix that problem? You certainly don't, right? And nor would that be a good idea to do. But everybody's mind always goes to devices. Everybody's mind always goes to, some technique or something. And in many cases, it's just showing people, listen, be direct with your dog. Let your dog know this is not okay. I've always said, I'll say it like this. There's dog training, okay? This is where we're creating behaviors. We're teaching your dog to track. We're teaching your dog to heel, to come when he's called, this and that. And then there's fundamental behavior, baseline behavior, okay? In my opinion, this is like not even really dog training. It's common sense type stuff. But again, in this day and age, I think common sense is not so common. And what I want you guys that are in my elite course to understand, right? What I want you guys in my elite course to understand is that dog training is not about techniques. It's about mindset. Okay? It's your mindset. If you guys have the right mindset, things are going to be good. If you guys don't have the right mindset and you're always hunting for devices and tricks and techniques, you're going to constantly struggle with your dog's baseline behavior. I can't tell you how many people walk through my doors with dogs that have actually a lot of behaviors. The dog knows how to focus heel. He's got a nice recall. He's got all the behaviors down. He can play dead and go get a beer out of the fridge. But the dog can't behave himself around other dogs. The dog, is resource guarding or whatever. How can this be? Right? Because people don't have the right mindset. They know how to shape a behavior, maybe with a combination of positive and negative reinforcement or just positive reinforcement, but they don't have the right mindset. I refuse to accept certain behavior. I just refuse to accept it. It's just not going to happen. All right? And the vast majority of dogs understand that type of communication. If I say be quiet, because my guests, I'm inviting people into my home and you're sitting on your dog bed, you're growling at them. How are you still going to be growling after I say be quiet? I don't need an e-collar to make that happen. I really don't, right? I need respect. And I get respect because I'm consistent. Respect isn't about being heavy-handed and it's not about bribery. It's about showing the dog that you are going to be consistent and you're not a liar. Most people lie to their dog. They constantly lie. No, stop, no. What are these things that you're saying to your dog? You're lying. No means nothing, right? No doesn't mean anything when you say it. Nothing follows no. Dogs don't speak that language. Dogs speak the language of there's consequences, direct, meaningful, and understandable consequences to specific behaviors. Right? They can be good or they can be bad. And then there's always the mindset too. And when I speak about mindset, people quit so easily. Right? Like I was reading this thing on a Facebook forum. Somebody going on about, my dog's so strong. He can't, the prong collar and the e-collar didn't work. So now I'm using positive reinforcement and he's really a lot better now. He's still bad, but he's a lot better. That always means, he's just the same as he always was. But, in the world of imagination, he's a little bit better, right? It's because you're making things about, we put the device on the dog and we zapped him and he didn't change everything all of a sudden. Right? Or we gave him a little tug on his prong collar and that didn't stop him because he's so strong. I guarantee you that dog that lady was talking about was most certainly not strong. And in about 5 minutes of being here, without any devices, none of that nonsense would be a problem anymore. Right? And that's not me being cocky. That's me knowing that I can communicate. Camera is terrible. Oh, okay. I don't know what to say, guys. Maybe the internet's not that good. Or maybe it is. Okay, yes, anyways. It's not about being cocky. It's just about knowing how to communicate with the dog. I'm very confident I can let the dog know, hey, I don't like that behavior, and it's just not happening anymore. And I want you guys that are doing the elite course, any course, okay? But specifically those of you that are struggling with the reactivity or those of you that are doing the off-leash obedience, because I get a lot of questions. My dog is really good except when around other dogs or this and that. And it's like, guys, you have a mindset problem. That's why your dog's not good around other dogs. You've said to your dog, yeah, it's okay for you to blow me off around other dogs. That's why he's doing it, right? I don't care what he wants to do. You've made it clear to him that he can do that. It's just not acceptable. The picture is very small. Okay, guys, well, how about this? Let me blow it up. Does that work? Can you see me now? Just somebody comment in the chat if it's better. Good. All right. I don't know why you guys want to see me up close anyways, but There's nothing to see here. Anyways, okay, guys. So I always say that this is uncharted territory because people look at me like I'm crazy when I talk about some of this stuff. And, it's stuff that no one's put in a book. I guess you could kind of say maybe way back in the day, the Kohler method of dog training in the 80s kind of talks about some of it. I wouldn't do the Kohler method of dog training. I'm sure there's elements within it that are kind of good, but for me, it's not. It's not a complete. Manuscript, nor is it the best way. Because again, with the Kohler method of dog training, it's all compulsion, right? But it's compulsion for teaching a lot of behaviors that you don't need to use exclusively compulsion with. What I'm talking to you guys about is the fundamental behavior of your dog, right? Like the fundamental baseline behavior. No obedience. Just how is he in the world? How is he in your home? This is fundamental baseline behavior. And if your dog's not good in these circumstances, it's your fault, right? It's your fault, and you're just not holding the dog, you're not holding your dog accountable. And I know it's something that, again, it's going to take some of you guys maybe a while to get, but I want you to understand this. It's not about being mean. For me, I think the worst thing you can do for your dog is be a liar, be an inconsistent communicator, hold your dog halfway accountable or sometimes accountable, but not all the time accountable. In my opinion, that's the absolute worst thing that you could do as a dog trainer or as a handler. I'm super consistent. We were joking about that guy. I've talked about that old school kind of dog trainer that we were talking about. He's about 75 now. He's got this young German Shepherd completely on his control, right? Is the training, like when he actually does like the sport work and stuff, is it pretty? No, it's not pretty. But in life, that dog is under his control because he has the attitude that dog respects. You will respect me. You will follow these rules. I'm real consistent. If you're a good boy, we're all good, my friend. If you're not a good boy, God help you. It's just that simple. I posted a video on my Instagram. It's hilarious. Like, we had this video of a husky. I'm not going to pull it up now. But we have this video. It's easy to find on our Instagram. And this husky bit a whole bunch of people. She bit a bunch of people. She bit her handlers a lot. And she's sitting on the table, and she's kind of giving you that husky glare with her big blue eyes. And and Sal's kissing him, right? Like, Sal's kissing the husky on the head. And I don't know, must have gotten shared on a positive only training group or something, and people were just having a fit. Oh, she's shut down, blah blah blah. It's like, really? Would you prefer that the husky be biting Sal? Would you prefer that the husky be biting us than sitting there and learning to control herself? Right? That's the level of insanity that we're at right now, where it's like, and now the husky, it's funny because the husky sees Sal, likes Sal practically better than her own handlers, right? Why? He was real tough on her when she did the wrong thing. He disciplined her very severely for the wrong thing. Just like that old school dog trainer I was talking about. Heavy discipline. Like, you guys would not, if I posted that on, listen, you guys would not want to see that, right? Like what that old school guy would do. And what a lot of old school guys would do. You wouldn't want to see that stuff. Like, it's rough stuff, but the dogs loved them. Why did the dogs love them? Because they're clear about it and they're consistent about it, right? So I want you guys to have a mindset, right? I'm not saying rough up your dog. Most of you guys, like I said, have these really, in my opinion, soft dogs, easy dogs, biddable dogs. You don't need to be Mr. Strong Arm, right? But if you have a mindset that there are certain behaviors I will not tolerate, right? I'll give you an example, one more example before I start getting into your questions, okay? I'm driving my side-by-side. And, no, it wasn't my side-by-side. Sorry, I'm driving my truck. I had a dog in the back. And the dog would bark. That was his little habit, was he would bark in the back of the truck when I was driving. As the wheels were turning, like once we started going, whoa, 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 he'd start doing that. So I said, no problem. I'll fix you. I'll put the e-collar on, right? And when he did it, I would correct him. Okay, he would be good. But he would still always start to do it, right? So one day I didn't have an e-collar on him, right? I don't always have e-collars on my dogs. I'm driving, he's in the back. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, no, right? Or sorry, I said quiet. That's the warning, quiet. And then he kept going. I said, no. And I stopped my truck on the side of the road. I got out, I disciplined the dog, I got back in the truck, and I drove. And he was quiet for a while. And then I heard, whoa. And immediately, no. I pulled right over, went to the dog, disciplined the dog, closed the door, got back in my truck and kept driving. He was quiet the rest of the ride. And thereafter, when I said quiet, he would be quiet. Why? Why would he be quiet? Because he knew that when I say quiet, I mean it. I'm going to back up what I say. I'm not lying to you. Those of you that are here for magic, those of you that are here for voodoo, those of you that are here for, let me just zap him and he's going to be a good boy, you're in the wrong place, guys, because that's not what I do. That's not what I do. I have results. You can look at the results on my channel, but most of that's not achieved with devices, right? So I want you guys to have that mindset and to understand, I demand your behavior be this way. I demand it. I will not tolerate anything else. And if they believe you, you're going to have the dog you always wanted. Okay, let's take a quick look here at the chat. Because I haven't been looking at the chat as I was going, guys. So those of you that said hi, if I didn't respond, sorry. I told a lot of you guys not to put... yeah. Okay, so guys, tons of you guys put messages in the chat, or sorry, questions in the chat. So I'm going to have to, I told you guys I'm going to get first to the questions that were emailed to me because that's really the way that it was supposed to go. So the first question is from Matthew Lavoie. I have a hard time getting my 1-year-old lab mix to ignore other dogs and stop wanting to play with them. I don't have access to multiple dogs to make him understand what I want. We see dogs on walks 5 to 6 times a week and try never to meet them. Sometimes dogs off leash come to us. Will this behavior decrease becoming older? No, it won't decrease. I see 10-year-old dogs here that can be around other dogs without losing their mind. Right? The question is, why are you allowing it? Right? And this brings us back to the original point that I was making here. Why are you allowing this behavior? Right? Like, I guarantee you, if you're having a problem with obedience around other dogs, your dog probably pulls you on a leash around other dogs. The fundamental, I want you to do this. I want you to go and take a piece of twine, like the thinnest piece of twine you can find. Okay? I want you to make a 6 foot long piece of twine. I want you to put that twine on one end of them on your dog's collar, okay? And then the other end of piece of twine, I want you to wrap it around your hand. Just one time, okay? And what's going to happen is every time your dog pulls on the leash, that twine is going to bite your hand. And it might. If he really pulls, he could cut your hand open with that twine. And if your dog is pulling you, then you're going to get the consequence for your behavior of failing to teach your dog to loose leash walk. And if your dog is not pulling you, then you're not going to have any problem controlling your dog with that tiny thin piece of twine that's barely visible. You can use fishing line for this too if you prefer. Okay? And I want you to set your dog up, right? I don't need dummy dogs to go. I'll take your dog in public right now and he's going to behave himself around other dogs, right? Because I demand it. I'm going to walk. I'm not going to tell him heel, sit down. I'm not going to hide your dog in obedience. I'm going to take your dog in public and I'm just going to say, all right, buddy, free time, let's go. And the first time he pulls me, there's going to be a humongous consequence because he's already been taught not to pull. It's not acceptable to continue pulling, right? And then what we're going to do is he sees another dog. I'm going to run towards that dog. I'm going to walk as fast as I can towards that dog. And then I'm going to pull a 180 and walk away from that dog. And if he misses that change of direction, well, there's going to be a consequence. And if he pulls, well, I do that change of direction. Well, guess what? My little fishing line or twine is going to cut my hand, right? And it's going to let me know that I'm not doing a good job about making that loose leash walking, right? Loose leash walking is the key to everything. And that's what it is, right? Like a lot of people really neglect the loose leash walking and they jump into all the more advanced behaviors because those are the sexy behaviors. And that's a mistake. All right. Okay, guys, the next question. Let's see here. Next question from B. Suan or Brian. Okay, Brian. I have a 6-month-old German Shepherd. My vet wants to spay her at 8 months. The breeder strongly disagrees and advises me to do it when she's older, close to 2 years old. Just wondering what your stand is on this. My stand is on spaying a dog. This is not really a training question, but prior to 2 years of age, if you ever spay a puppy from me, your health contract is completely void. Your health guarantee is void. It's the stupidest thing to do. There's absolutely no reason to do it. Your dog is at increased risk of numerous health issues that are not being commonly disclosed by the vets, but many people know about them, right? Do not ever fix a dog prior to 2 years of age. It's terrible for their health. I have a 10-week-old, this is from Angela. I have a 10-week-old German Shepherd that's been fed exclusively raw from the breeders. Following your program, curious what dry food you feed. Love and want to continue raw, but feeding from hand and throwing in the kennel to kennel train and whatnot is obviously not going to happen. I grabbed a small bag of Merrick, raw coated with freeze-dried chunks, but curious what you suggest. I mean, I'm not like a snooty kibble guy, you know? I've used a variety of kibbles over my time in dog training. Right now, all my dogs are on Royal Canin or Eukanuba, which is the same company. Eukanuba is like more of the grain-free branch, I guess. So I have Eukanuba, which I really like because it comes in big pieces, and the big pieces are really good for training. And then Royal Canin I also have as well for the puppies, and you know I've never had a problem with those foods. I also used to use Costco, the adult, the turkey, the grain-free turkey. Man, every dog I had did really well on that Costco. The reason I stopped using it was because they wouldn't deliver, right? And I got big enough that I just couldn't go and pick up dog food anymore for everybody. I needed like skids delivered here. In the past, I've also used Purina. I think they changed their formula, so I don't really like Purina anymore. But I would say Eukanuba, Royal Canin, or Costco grain-free turkey. The Costco puppy was really good for a long time, but I think again they changed their formula, and I don't like their Costco puppy anymore. It's making some of my puppies sick. Let's see. The next question, and I'm just going through these questions in the order that I received them, okay? I'd love to know how to get my 2.5-year-old female German Shepherd to down sit so fast. Well, this question is from Pamela, by the way. She knows her commands but does them in slow motion. Also, I fell at the barn when I was with my horse. Some of my friends came to help me. She became very aggressive. Just intense barking, no lunging. Fortunately, when I asked for a down, she obeyed. My question is, if you can answer, because you weren't here, do you think she became protective? She has had no bite work or any other type of protection training. Thank you very much. Okay, so Pamela, I would say this. Number one, for your dog's speed and obedience, what you need to do is you need to do the dynamic rewards that I show in the Elite Off-Leash course, okay? You need to put pressure on every behavior, all right? Just a little bit of negative reinforcement, either with the leash, preferably with the leash, right? So you're putting the dog, like for instance, you're putting some pressure, sit, and then right away you break her into a dynamic reward for the sit, right? You put a little bit of pressure into every behavior. So the pressure speeds the dog up, and then the dynamic reward at the end speeds the dog up. If your rewards are boring, and if you're not maybe putting pressure, you're putting too much pressure, you're going to get that kind of slow-mo dog. In relation to your other problem with her being aggressive when you fell at the barn, number one, I would have a place command, which you should have if you're in my elite course. Get a bale of straw, send your dog onto that straw, and, she can be on there. If you're riding, you fall off, and she comes running to you or whatever, no, go back to your place if you're capable of talking anyways. And that behavior is common. I mean, obviously it is a high-stress situation, Lots of arousal. Your dog obviously was really insecure about the whole situation, and then everybody approaching, it's hard to say because, again, like you said, I wasn't there. Either she was afraid for you or she was afraid for herself if she was next to you. It's good that she obeyed. But my solution to that is I would have the dog trained to go to a place at a distance, and she goes and stays on her bale of straw while I'm working in the barn. That would be my solution. Boom. Okay, let's see here. This is from Ann Lee. Hi, Haz. How do you correct for reactivity from inside the car? My German Shepherd sits in the back seat. I can't fit a crate big enough for him in the car and will growl and bark at dogs from inside the car. I was doing counter conditioning with high-value food, reaching back and feeding him when he saw a dog. Seemed to work for a while. I've given him some hard corrections, which is hard while driving. He was good for a while, but then started up again. He's fine walking by dogs and has gotten over that reactivity, though does not like dogs approaching him. Okay, Ann-Lee, so for this, I would say if you're through the elite course and your dog's fully e-collar trained, you can use the e-collar now to fix the problem. So, he sees a dog, he starts going, quiet, and if he keeps going, no, and the correction. If you're not through the e-collar course, then you cannot use your e-collar yet. I would say, again, for me, it's I'll literally stop if possible, pull over, and give the dog a correction then so he knows I'm always going to follow through. If it's not physically possible, because a lot of people have this problem with the dog in the back seat kind of being crazy, again, my suggestion, get through the e-collar course, and then you can use the e-collar as a positive punisher in this specific circumstance. If you haven't gotten through the e-collar course and you jump to positive punishment, you run a lot of risk of kind of messing your dog up. So I wouldn't do that. All right. Next question. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. That question appeared again. Gizzy Welsher. Hi, Haz. I'm really struggling with dealing with off-leash dogs running up to us. It's not too bad when my husband is with me, as he can hold on to our 15-month-old German Shepherd, who is lunging to try and get to me and it while I shoo the other dog away. But on my own, I really struggle. Our boy is losing his mind, as I know he wants to deal with it himself. So how would you deal with this situation? I know the ideal thing would be to have him in a down. No, it wouldn't be to have him in a down. Listen, if you're in a place where there's a lot of off-leash dogs, number one, you need to get your dog's behavior right. I don't care if there's an off-leash dog. Don't be a fool. Now, if that dog attacks him and he does the right thing, he protects himself, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if your dog, is being proactively aggressive to other dogs, which it sounds like he is, right? It sounds like he's completely out of control and he's going after the other dogs and stuff like this. That's not okay. You need to put an end to that. Right, I would not tolerate that behavior. So, number one, get your dog completely in control. I don't care if there's an off-leash dog. You don't pull me on the leash, right? You need to be the biggest person in that scenario, right? Now, I will say this: if you've got some aggressive dogs, walk with a stick. All right, you walk with a walking stick or something. Have a staff, whatever. You can fend the dog off. But you have to understand in multi-dog situations, you literally have to be such a presence that the dogs are both thinking about you. The big mistake people make is they're way too passive in these circumstances, okay? And the dogs ignore them and just tune them out. You're not here. My whole focus is on the other dog. Believe me, if another dog comes up on my dog, both my dog and the strange dog, I'm all up in their grill. They can't think of anything other than me. I'm very loud, I'm very assertive, and I'll whack someone upside the head if I have to. That stuff isn't going down, right? My dog knows it, so he knows he better watch his P's and Q's, and that dog knows it, right? Real quick. He might not know it until he comes up, but he does know it real quick. Then, yeah, I mean, look, once I got control of the situation, like if, let's say, the dog's trying to be a little bit silly, the owner's being a bit incompetent, down. I'll tell my dog down, I'll grab the other dog, and I'll wheel him right back to his owner, right? If he doesn't, then you can just use your stick and kind of fend him off until the owner gets there. If it's a friendly dog, I don't expect your dog maybe to love it, but at the same time, don't allow him to be proactively aggressive. If a friendly dog runs up to my dog and my dog's, a bit of a jerk, believe me, he's going to be hearing from me. He's going to wish he never made that decision because I won't accept it. I just won't tolerate it. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to do that, right? I don't care what your proclivity is. And that's what I mean. That's what I mean, guys. I really want you to understand this and internalize it. Dogs need that from you. They need that. Just, I'm not putting up with this. You're not going to behave like this. All right? And I'm going to also manage the situation. Now, if you're completely, passive in that situation, well, your dog can't trust you. And if your dog can't trust you, why would he listen to you? All right? So you need to step up in those type of circumstances. You need to be the biggest presence there, and you need to guide the whole situation. So if you're in that position where you've got a lot of dogs, be prepared. Be prepared in terms of having your dog trained properly, and be prepared in terms of, having, like I said, a stick or something if you've got aggressive dogs running up on you. Okay. Let's see here. Ocean Van Frakem. I'm based in Belgium, which makes it pretty hard to actually be online. I'm currently training my 6-year-old working line German Shepherd with your elite off-leash obedience course. I'm also going to purchase the reactivity course. He's very reactive towards other dogs. I've had him for 10 months. We rescued him from the animal shelter. I have the following questions. Is there an upper age limit for training dogs as you see it? No, there isn't. I've trained 8 to 10-year-old dogs. Will the outcome be... I actually trained a 12-year-old not that long ago. Will the outcome be different? No, it won't. My dog seems to be alert all the time when we are out of the house. It's very hard for him to settle down. When we went on a vacation, we would put him in his crate with a bone or something similar and close the door. When the bone was done, he would start whining all the time. Is there a way to make it easier for stressed, unsure dogs to settle down? Sometimes it just seems he has FOMO. That's fear of missing out, to be honest. Okay, in relation to this, alert all the time, that means your dog is coming out, okay? I've seen these dogs. They walk around scanning for threats or scanning for things to be threatened by all the time, okay? And that is a fundamental failure in your handling, okay? So for me, if I go out with my dog and I see him scanning, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing some really erratic stuff. I'm going to change directions on him. I'm going to walk really fast and stop really fast. And we're back to the loose leash walking, right? Now, if he's an off-leash dog, which it doesn't sound like yours is yet, if he's an off-leash dog, I'm going to break my dog. I'm going to call him back. I'm going to break him. I'm going to call him back. I'm going to break him. I'm going to call him back. I'm going to put him in and through a whole bunch of obedience. And if he makes a mistake because he's not paying attention, because he's thinking about other things, there's going to be a humongous consequence. And I'm going to keep doing that until I see his mind has normalized. And he's not scanning. And he's not walking around with his tail scorpion. And he's, looking for trouble, so to speak. I'm going to put him to so much work until he normalizes. And I'm going to intentionally try to screw him up in the work so that he will make a mistake because he's hyper-focused on the environment instead of thinking about me. And then if we do run into something after I've done that, I guarantee you the dog is going to be in control because you've already made your point without waiting for something for him to react to. Now, when it comes to the crate stuff, I always say with anxious dogs, the worst thing you can do, right, is make is to give that type of dog choices. So he's telling you that if he has the choice to make noise in the crate, that makes him upset. It causes stress. So for me in the crate, I will remove his ability to make noise, right? You can be looking at a bark collar, something like that, where it'll catch him whining on a high volume, and boom, it corrects him for that behavior, and he learns to be quiet. Don't do this if you have not completed the off-leash obedience course, though, because I don't want that to affect your e-collar work. I like using the e-collar or electric to correct like barking behavior and this kind of stuff only after I've gotten most of the way through the obedience and the dog is very comfortable with the stimulation. Let's see here. I'm trying to learn as much about dog training, and I came across the term learned helplessness. Is this really a thing? My dog seems to lean lean for everything on me. Lean on me for everything. But I'm in doubt if this is him being unsure, unsettled versus helplessness. Being in a new place, for example, and I would break him. Sometimes he just looks at me, not wanting to leave my side. That's not learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is basically, dogs that become completely passive in situations. That, like basically, I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do, so the dog basically shuts down. That's basically what learned helplessness means. It's a term that I'm very cautious about because it's used by a lot of force-free types, and these people often make up nonsense like this because they say, oh, look, he's learned helpless. No, you're just allowing him to behave like that, right? Like, so for instance, let's say I have a dog who completely shuts down, right? Because they had a bad experience or something. So the dog shuts down and refuses to do anything and just kind of lies on the ground and completely tries to just play dead dog and quit. I'm going to put so much pressure on the dog, or I shouldn't say so much. I'm going to put enough pressure on the dog that the dog becomes unshut down. And then the dog's going to learn that shutting down is not the solution to pressure. Being active and proactive in fixing the problem that's creating the pressure is the solution to the pressure. Helplessness is often taught by people that really don't know what they're doing, right? Now, is it true that some dogs, completely shut down in situations where they're overstimulated or they're around something that's terrifying for them? Yes, but what are the alternatives? The alternatives are, well, let's look at it. Fight, flight, freeze, right? Or function. I add function to that because fight, flight, or freeze is the inborn responses that the dog might have to that stress or the created responses with bad training, right? For me, it's function. You're scared of the bus driving by? Too bad. We're going to keep walking. You can't run. If you run, there's a correction. If you, if you try to lie down, hey man, we got to keep walking. I'm not going to let you lie down. And I teach the dog to function through the fear, to function through the stress. Because the stress, like I said, every dog has a different level of sensitivity to stress. And the reason why we're so successful with dogs that have these stress problems, like, we put a few of them on the YouTube, but you wouldn't believe how many dogs come in here shaking and shut down and just like puddles of goo. And it's not because of bad experiences. It's because they're just their baseline is that they just have a very weak nervous system and no one's taught them to deal with it. People have instead, played all these games of, oh, he's scared of that, so let's avoid that, or he doesn't like that, so let's hide from that. And that's never the solution to stress. The solution to stress is, no, you're going to deal with it. We're going to move through it. And then also finding a way to kind of start to bring the dog's emotion up, and you can watch that, in some of our YouTube videos when we're dealing with dogs that are very stressed and stuff like this. All right. Let's see. This is a long question, so I got to cut it short here. This correlates with the above question of presumed FOMO. Is it possible to overstimulate a dog? We sometimes take our dog to work with us, which is a carpenter's workplace. So there's a lot of noise, a few people running around, and also 2 extra dogs. One way or another, he's not reactive to these dogs. He does not have a leash on here. He does, however, not settle down. We try to put him somewhere to lie down and rest, but from the moment he can't see us, he jumps up, starts following us around, with the consequence, of course, that after a whole day, he's exhausted because he didn't rest for 10 hours. Use a place command, by all means. Put the dog on a place command. That would be the solution to that. Again, some dogs just can't handle the freedom. So if he can't handle the freedom, remove his freedom until he learns to either calm down, or maybe he always needs that level of management from you. It'll help him. Okay. Let's see here. Next question. This is from Canadian Fitness. Not sure who it is, but Canadian Fitness. I have a 10-month-old Malinois. She's amazing. However, I have had crate issues and separation issues since she was young. I used the bark collar, e-collar method in one of your earlier videos, and it saved me from losing my mind. However, she still cannot relax in a crate with it locked for long periods before she works her anxiety up. I love that she wants to follow me. She makes a great family pet, and I'm proud when she listens and behaves. I need someone to video us so I can see how your online video at work. I'm struggling with this with her separation. and she whined at... Okay, so I was at a friend's and went to the basement to look at something, and she whined at the stairs. The other dogs were fine, except she was fixated on me. COVID didn't help. It doesn't help. I can't work again, so she's with me a lot. Loud when I leave. Learn to whimper, not bark. These dogs are genius. Yeah, I would say with this type of stuff, right? What you need to do, like I said, if you followed that free video I put up on how to deal with separation anxiety, put the dog in the crate, use the bark collar as long as you've already done the online training, right? The elite online training, the elite off-leash obedience training, and use a proper bark collar and one that's sufficient that it will stop her from making noise, right? You can't make noise. You got to be in the crate. What are you going to do? Oh, you're going to be stressed? No problem. I'll just let you be stressed. You're going to go to sleep? Oh, that's a good solution, right? Sometimes you have to let them learn to just deal with the stress. In the first few times you do it, maybe they're shaking. Maybe you come home and you find them in a puddle of drool, right? For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lot of work around the crate. I'm going to be like, okay, well, you eat in the crate. You sleep in the crate. If I'm home during the day, guess where you're in sometimes? You're in the crate. And I'm going to make the crate just such a common place for the dog to be, right? That it stops being like this kind of big stress thing. So I would follow my instructions in that video really closely and say, hey, like you're not going to make noise in the crate. It's just not acceptable. And then in the house, if she's following you around and she's attached to your ass, so to speak, then put the dog on the place and leave her on the place and don't let her follow you around. The second she starts trying to follow you, go on your place, right? Until you can be normal, go on your place. And if she's whimpering on her place, then you must correct her for this behavior. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. Just looking for the next question here. Okay. I have a question for the live. This is from Jennifer. For the live stream regarding weaning a dog off food rewards with training. How and when is the best way to do this? I have a 6-month-old puppy and I solely hand feed during our training sessions 3 times a day. It's a silly question, but with my previous dogs, I would ask more before rewarding with food, but they were not fed their daily diet and training. Some guidance about this would be great. Well, Jennifer, if you're doing a puppy, what I do with the puppies is, in the beginning, of course, I reward very regularly on just about every rep. But once the puppy starts to really understand behaviors, I'll start asking for a few behaviors and then randomly jackpotting the reward. When we start getting into an adult dog, or a young adult, and you're doing the elite off-leash course, then for sure, you can definitely use less food rewards. I always say, pick a number of treats, take them with you if your dog really likes food, on your walk or whatever. I don't care. There's no dog that's too old to be paid for their work. Bring a few of those treats with you on the walk and use them. And, say you bring 3 treats. Well, randomly give 3 treats throughout the walk. And the dog just, he's always kind of pulling the virtual slot machine every time you ask for the behavior. Maybe I'll get rewarded this time. It adds a little bit more anticipation. Let's see here. So this is from Kathy. My dog does psycho play. I don't want to correct her during play as you instruct. I encourage her to come to me, lured with leash, but she loses her mind. I've avoided toys because of this. I've stopped the psycho stuff on walks with loose leash walking. She makes hounds of hell sounds and shake her head violently. She has a nice temperament. It's more of a happy, playful thing. She's always wagging happy, but things escalate if allowed. I want to do this lesson properly and really want to stop the crazy killing a rat thing. She's 2 years old, 40-pound terrier mix. So, a lot of, pity mixes and stuff like this are very intense in how they play. All right? I don't actually personally see a problem with that. Your dog needs to have an outlet for that, right? Now, obviously, if the dog's nailing you, it's a problem. If your dog's jumping on you and hurting you, it's a problem. But you do have to, I would play tug with the dog, but I'll grab the tug a little bit and she'll kind of shake her head and I'll let her have it. And we'll do that over and over again, right? And if she kind of gets a little bit too much, hey, calm down, and then we'll play again. But you have to understand that what you're basically telling me is your dog loves this. Your dog absolutely loves to do this, but you don't want to do that with her. Well, if you don't give her that outlet, where do you think she's going to put that energy? She's going to stop putting that energy into you. She's going to start putting it into somewhere else, and you might not like that. So I would say this. I'm not saying that you have to put up with dangerous play. There are some dogs that go too far. They'll bite you in the hand and all this kind of stuff. Listen, if I'm playing and I see a dog nail me in the hand on purpose, okay, and there are some dogs that will, you'll have the tug like this, right? And they will grab your hand, like boom, and they'll hit your hand. Don't do that. And then I'll give them the tug again. I'll say, you want to bite my hand? And usually they'll say, no, I'll bite the tug. Good boy, let's play tug. Right? Now, I'm not talking about a little puppy. It's different with little puppies. Don't do that. You can wreck your dog, your playing relationship. Your puppy might not feel comfortable to play with you. But for an older dog, for sure, I've met dogs, 10 months old, a year old, even 2 years old. They do this. They've learned that, instead of going for the toy, I'll go for your hand. Not more than once. You won't. Right? Be clear about that. Just like anything, structured play has rules, right? You must not bite me. You must let go. You must bring it back. There are rules. But within those rules, you have to give your dog that outlet to be happy, to enjoy themselves. Do dogs like Malinois or double fur coat need winter gear? The deep cold temperatures we are experiencing across Canada have me wondering how you experience extreme weather with your dog. No, they don't. I've been out multiple times with dogs over the years, and everything up to negative 40 degrees. They most certainly do not. It doesn't help them. Their natural coat certainly does. Obviously, the big thing is you just don't want your dog to get wet in that cold, right? So, like if your dog happens to jump in the water, they shouldn't be out in extreme cold temperatures. But if your dog is dry and moving, your dog should be fine. I'm not saying you should leave your dog out overnight in those temperatures unless there's a heated doghouse or something like that. If my dog's, like I'm going to have a few dogs here, probably going to grow a winter coat next year because I'm going to leave them out through the summer. And when the dog has a winter coat, an insulated doghouse with straw in it, believe me, they can survive negative 40 temperature, no problem. Let's see here. Next question. Sorry, guys. Just pulling up the next one. Then I'm going to get into the chat. Okay. My dog is very vocal. Husky, of course. Who likes to whine and whimper when he is excited, anxious, bored, etc. I do not mind at all when he is vocal when we play, but I do mind when he's holding down at a cafe and he is bored and he wants to get up and get moving, and he starts whining. How should I approach correcting his whining behavior? Is it confusing for him to be corrected for whining only some of the time in some situations, or should I correct or instead create a quiet command? And if so, what would be the best way to go about it? So Zoe, I guess is your name. What I would say for this is, for sure in the beginning, what you want to do is you want to definitely correct your dog for the whining. I always say to my clients, there's two types of whining. There's the type of whining where the dog maybe is just so used to making the noise that they don't notice it. So, like, it's almost like in time with their breathing. They're just kind of like, huh, 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 and they're very kind of low and quiet. Most of the time, I find the dogs don't even know they're doing that. But with Huskies, what they do is, woo, they start making like the police siren noises and all this type of stuff. So for sure, you're right. You must say quiet. And then if the dog makes noise, I would just nick him on the collar. I assume it sounds like he's off leash already. I would nick him on the collar for that. Just not on like a super high level, but just on a level where he notices it. It's mildly unpleasant, and he says, okay, no more of that. And, so he'll make like a noise, woo, nick, and I'll just repeat that every single time until he's like, okay, every time I make that noise, I get nicked. I should probably stop doing that. And if he's not responding to the nick, just turn it up a bit. And if he breaks the position, let's say he's in a down, you're nicking him for the whining, you just repeat down and nick him again. Right? So he goes back into the down, then he might break the position a few times because he will be a little confused, but you make it clear to him, you must lie down and you must be quiet. It's two things. Okay, so the chat looks like it's been quite active, guys. So I'm going to go up to the I'm going to go up and see kind of what's going on here. All right, so, and guys, all the positive stuff, like, hey, how's it going, that kind of stuff, I'm not going to reply to it just because there's so much of it, but I appreciate it and I see it. Let's see here. Silly pup. I have yet to make a correction with the e-collar. Almost all my corrections are with nothing physical. Well, I would be careful with that because, again, remember when we talked about being a liar? If you say with nothing physical, then I don't know very many dogs that are going to exclusively respond with any level of reliability to that. What I find with people that do that is a lot of the time it's just and they're saying it all the time. So I would make sure that I'm not repeating myself too many times. I say, you stop, and if you don't stop, there is going to be a physical correction. Doesn't have to be with an e-collar, but it should be there. Okay, hi Has Elite member here. I have been working on recall with the long leash, but when I release my dog to go explore, he would rather stick with me. It's hard to practice recall like that. Any suggestions? Yeah, I would go to a more interesting place. That's what I would do if I was you. Sometimes if you're just like in the same field all the time, the dog gets bored. I would say if your dog always, some dogs are line wise. So if you have the line on the dog, he knows that, okay, it's my training line. So what I do with those dogs, they don't leave if they're wearing the line. I'll go to a fenced in area, like a baseball diamond or something, and I'll go practice there. And a lot of the time you take the line off, boom, dog's gone. Especially if it's in a newer area. And then you can really practice the recall without the fear of your dog running away. Let's see here. Next question. When is the competition obedience course coming out? How do you get high feet in the competition heel and the front really close to you? Well, Alan, that's a work in progress. I think we're a couple months out from that because I'm working primarily right now on the protection course. So it'll be a bit for that. I'm sorry. It's just one of those things where not enough time in the day, and the competition training is complex. It's complex. I have to really, a lot of the time I'll film a video and then I won't like the video and I'll say to myself, man, this video is not going to help. This video is not going to help, whoever it is that's watching this that doesn't know anything about competition obedience. So then I'll redo the video. So there's some videos I've done like 3-4 times, All right, let's see. Boom. Going through the chat here. Matt D. Being sexy isn't easy. You're right, Matt. I know what you're talking about, buddy. I know what you're talking about. Let's see here. What's my opinion on 100K dogs? Well, look, Mr. J-Knot, if you want to buy a $100,000 dog from me, I'll be happy to sell you one. All right, let's see. How do you unbox your import dogs that are more on the feisty side? Even the most nasty dogs, generally speaking, when you send them away from the person that they know, they've flown 10 hours in the crate from a foreign country. They land in a completely new place. They might not love me, but they're sure as heck willing to come out of that crate and accept me putting a leash on them. So I might not be fondling the dog and hugging him, but he's willing to accept me kind of interacting with him because I'm the only solution to his problem, right? Let's see here. The fundamental behavior of my dog is running and jumping on everyone that enters my house. Look into the place command. Look into my Elite Off-Leash Obedience course. Your problems will be solved with that. What is the best dog training method? There is no method. There is no method. Like, there's all sorts of things like Nepo-Po. People talk about Nepo-Po and you know, this and that. Like there's all sorts of like fancy like word, like people kind of like, you know, name what they do with like gimmicky kind of names. I would say that any kind of training that incorporates, you know, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, classical conditioning, punishment, and that takes into account the genetic predispositions of the dogs and helps you work within those predispositions to maximize the dog's behavior, that's a good system. But the better you get at dog training, the less systemic you're going to be. You might use loosely things from various systems. Like I use things from probably like five to 10 different systems, and then, you know, put my own little spin on a lot of it, right? Because systems they're good for new people, but they're not something that's maybe necessary for somebody that kind of really understands the fundamental principles of dog training. Okay, guys, let me see here. Elite member, are you going to put an online training for stuff like back center stand? You mean tricks? Well, Jason, like these behaviors, you know, I might make a video at some point. It's not high on my priority list because there's like 100 free videos on how to make these behaviors on YouTube. You know, like how to teach your dog to back up or to come in between your legs or to stand up. And these are behaviors, they're fundamentally tricks, and they're very easy to teach with just hot dogs. So they're not something that I put a lot of focus on in my courses that are out right now. My courses are out right now are designed to be able to get you walking off leash with your dog the way you see us doing in the videos and stuff like that. So yes, we have videos where we're doing more competition style work or more kind of like trick type work. But the fundamental stuff that people really need in their life, that's been my primary focus. Sure, you know, like maybe down the road we'll make it, but it's not a high priority. Michelle, haha, I posted your shock video in a PP association group in Facebook. It was funny, but also showed how pathetic they are. Well, I'm sure that would have ruffled a few feathers. Okay. Let's see here. Let me see. Just going through the questions, guys. Can I teach my dog to bite commies and skip the IGP stuff? You don't have to do IGP stuff to do bite work. Boom, boom, boom. You know, with the bite work stuff, guys, I always say it. People get mad at me because they see me doing all the bite work, and I usually have a sleeve on my arm. And that's because the vast majority of the work you do with your dog can be done with a sleeve, and I think you do the best work with the sleeve. Because the sleeve really shows you the grip on the dog. The dog actually has to bite extra hard on the sleeve. Like, they can't get away with half-ass biting. The problem with a lot of bite suits and soft sleeves and stuff that kind of like is more form-fitting, the dog can bite a little bit half-ass. But when you're using an IGP style sleeve, you know, a big, thick, heavy jute sleeve, the dog is either biting or he's not biting. It's less forgiving of bad grips. And it really, I've always said this, and I'll say this again, when it comes to protection training, it's not about what the dog is biting, it's about how the dog is biting. It's about the emotion that he's biting in. If he's biting in the right emotion, I'll tell you this, you know, I've got a few IGP dogs here, and you are welcome to come. And anybody want to come test these dogs, they're IGP dogs. I haven't done any like kind of like really civil work with them or anything because I don't need to. But the dogs are biting in the right emotion. You want to come here, we'll video you getting bit with nothing on. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we're teaching the dogs an emotion. We're not teaching them that it's about the sleeve. It's really not. We're channeling the emotion into the sleeve, but it's not about the sleeve, if that makes any sense. Amazing content as always. In your opinion, which dog sport best complements the type of protection training that you do? I say that my protection training is a foundation for any kind of discipline you're going to be doing with a dog. That's it's not for a specific sport. I do things maybe slightly differently depending on the sport that you're going into, but at the end of the day, protection is protection. Let's see here. I feel like I'm behind in training, but my dog was not doing super well once I started asking more, so we slowed way down. It would depend what you mean by that. It would really depend what you mean by that. Like, why did your dog slow down in training? Like, you know, is it because your dog's saying, I don't want to work? Or is it because you're going too fast and your dog doesn't really understand? Those are two very different problems. Because there's definitely lazy dogs that don't like to train. You know, like recently we trained like what is it? Those livestock guardian dogs, European Kangal. Yeah, one of those. And those livestock guardian dogs, we've done quite a few of them over the years, and they're always grumpy dogs. They're like basically the mules of the dog world, right? They're not bred to be biddable. They're not bred to want to do obedience training. And, you know, the dog just didn't want to do anything. But guess what, dude? You have to do it, right? So, yeah, a little bit more pressure and a little bit less carrot because he doesn't care about the carrot. And the only thing that's going to make him work is the pressure. Now, the other thing that people run into is they just didn't teach the dog properly the fundamentals. The dog doesn't really understand, and that's why you see the dog not progressing. So you want to make sure your fundamentals are really clear. If your fundamentals are really clear, you know, your dog is clear on the behavior. You're rewarding your dog properly for success in those behaviors. Your dog likes you and wants to work for you. Then for sure, progress. And if he says, I don't want to be progressed, then you progress him. What is your opinion on dog soul? Oh, I already answered that question. Okay. Staring is my problem. My dog stares towards other dogs. He sits and downs but stares. Break him from obedience. See, this is what I mean, guys. Everybody always hiding their dogs that like to fixate in obedience. Break him. Go. Free, buddy. Go. Go. Do what you want to do. You want to stare at that dog? Great. Let's walk really fast towards that dog. And I'm going to hit the brakes or I'm going to pull a 180 on you. And guess what? You staring so hard, you missed it. And wham! Correction. You pulled me on the leash. Big mistake. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Oh, I guess you don't want to look at him anymore. No problem. Right? It's just that simple. Let's see here. Man, hopefully it's not that Omicron. Got a little something back there. What do I do with a picky eater? I'm so tired of switching kibbles, and I don't have space for raw. Johnny, you're doing what everybody does with a picky eater. They're going way out of their way to feed the dog. Don't do it. Right? No, don't do it. It's quite simple. It's like, I'm going to feed you this food. I know that this is a good food. It's a well-formulated mix. You don't have any health issues, I'm assuming. Here's your food. It comes down for 5 minutes twice a day in the bowl. Eat it or don't. It's up to you. Okay, 5 minutes is done. You didn't eat it. Bye. Bowl's gone. You do this a few days, believe me, he'll become very unpicky very fast. Any experience with a canna? Yeah, I used a canna a long time ago. I mean, I didn't really think it was great or not great, but that was many years ago, so who's to say? Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. What consequences do I administer? You got to take my course. I'm not going to disrespect the people that took my course by giving specific course-related information out to people that aren't in the course. Got a 3-year-old German Shepherd from the shelter. She doesn't really listen and is always in the way. Doesn't know any commands. Are there any recommendations? Yeah, take my lead off leash obedience course. It'll tell you how to train your dog from 0 all the way to 100. Did I see your video you posted on my Facebook page? That's from Michelle. I didn't see a video that you posted on my Facebook page. Hold on. Let me pull up my Facebook page and find out. Oh no, I would have to log in. Not on my home computer here, guys. I'm in the office. So let me check quickly. If I can find it quickly, then we'll pull it up. And if I can't, I asked for you guys to send me some videos. No one really sent me a training video. Let's see here. Pulling it up. Just gonna log in and see if I can find it. Yeah, this is the office computer. I never log into Facebook here. You know what? I can't see it. So, I'm sorry. No. Your best bet is to send me a link to the video on my Outlook. On my Outlook email. Send me a link to the video there, and then I can go over it. Okay. Where is this? Okay. And back to the chat. Okay. I have two dogs. I have the two dogs in the protection training video, Defense to Prey. Oh, this is a question from Darius. How have the two dogs in the protection training video, Defense to Prey, progressed? Which type of dog do you prefer? A dog that has a strong defensive drive but weak prey drive, or strong prey drive? It depends on the work you're doing, Darius. So number one, both those dogs are sold. Both those dogs really came into the prey. Like the grips became better and better and better and better. Both those females are a little bit lackluster in the grips for the first, while. But the more and more we did that, the harder and harder the grips got. Were they extreme prey dogs, and will they ever be? No. If you want a protection dog, like a family protection dog, I prefer higher defense, because that's the kind of dog that's going to warn somebody. That's the kind of dog that's going to be more alert. That's the kind of dog that's going to have good suspicion. And all those things lends itself well to being a watchdog. And those are the kinds of dogs that tend to be maybe a little bit less quick to bite and a little more quick to bark. And I think for most people, that's a good scenario. The higher the prey, oftentimes, dogs that are higher in the prey, they're a little bit faster to the biting part. And for many people, that might not be such a good thing. So for me, listen, if I have, like my current dog, I really like him. His name's Gage, for those of you that don't know. And Gage has very high defense and very high prey. And they come together, I think, in a nice, very spicy mixture. So I do like a dog that carries a little nerve. I don't like a dog that's exclusively in prey. Not because they're not great biters and not because they don't make fantastic working dogs. But for my taste, I like a dog that has a little bit of the defense in them. A little bit of the nasty, so to speak. I got this dog from a friend, listens great on the leash, but chooses to walk away from a command when loose in the house. What should I do? John, this is a question that you would know the answer to if you were taking my elite course. Why aren't you taking my elite course? Boom, boom, boom. What would you... And it's because you're giving your dog a choice, by the way. Like, what do you mean? Walk away. Walk away? How's that happening? What would you suggest to look for in a puppy German Shepherd as a protection companion dog? Well, number one, I would look for I would look for a breeding that's coming from working lines. So most people that go and buy a dog for protection work, usually they're buying a dog from pet lines. The dogs haven't done anything, but his daddy was a police dog. No, he wasn't. The breeder just told you that to sell you the puppies. You go to a working dog kennel, a kennel where they actually work the dogs, where they do bite work, where you can see the dogs working and doing what they're supposed to be doing, where you can see multiple generations doing what the breeder claims that they do, right? Like you look at one of my dogs, you can pull up his grandfather, his great-grandparents. You can see them work, right? There's no question. Right? Most people just buy these dogs from the farmer down the road, and then they wonder why the dog won't work, right? Because you didn't buy a working dog. You bought, a German Shepherd of no particular origin, right? Once you have a good breeding nailed down, the next thing that you want to do is you want to look at the puppies individually. If you have a choice, pick the most confident puppy, right? The one that's not afraid. That's the most important thing, or the one that shows the least fear. Every puppy has some level of fear of some things. And if you have a choice and you kind of are able to look at the drive, you take a little rag and you wiggle it around, see who's more interested in the rag. And, you pick that one and you hope for the best. And it can work out and maybe it doesn't work out. But that's why, when you select puppies, it's always a kind of a roll of the dice. I selected a puppy recently from a very promising breeding. I really liked the parents. And I thought that the puppy was going to be fantastic. And now we're coming in on 6 months. And I'm like, man, I don't think she's got it in her. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but it's not looking good, Just it is what it is, right? Like sometimes you make a choice and it's the right choice, and sometimes you make a choice and it's the wrong choice. All right. My beagle smells the scent of a dog from days ago and becomes incredibly fear reactive, barking, hackles raised. I've tackled the reactivity and he's behaved, but how do I fix the fear? Well, fear is inborn, right? Like it is what it is in terms of fear. As long as you don't allow the dog to engage, I'll tell you this. A lot of dogs that come to us super insecure, super fearful, super shut down, they walk in the door like that. They've never been corrected. They've never had any guidance in their life. They've never had any obedience training. They just come in like that. They're like 10 months old, a year old, whatever. And within a week of tough training, consistent training, we give you love, we give you corrections, we give you everything. Those dogs are so open, it's unbelievable. It's like the dog literally, we're training in this German Shepherd right now. I wish I videoed him when he first came in. He looked like, he just looked like a beaten dog. And I know he wasn't beaten, but, his name's Zoltan, German Shepherd. American show lines, which again, for him, it's not a they're not doing him any favor. American show lines, need I say more? Okay, you have a picture in your mind. Fine bone dog. Cowhocked, afraid. American show line, basically, I think it's like a breed standard, right? That they're terrified of everything and insecure and so on and so forth. But and poorly built. But this is how he came in. But now it's like a different dog. He's happy. He's open. He's interactive. And this is a dog that came in for reactivity, came in for behavioral problems, and he just looked like a terrible dog when he came in, just so shut down, so scared. And now he's just so open. And he's around dogs and people here every day. He's behaving himself. He's learning the obedience, and he's a good boy, So this is just an example, right? Like when you say to the dog, you can be afraid, but you're not allowed to misbehave. Your fear is not an excuse for misbehavior. Then all of a sudden you see what the dog is capable of. In many cases, I see the fear reduce significantly when you take control of the behavior of the dog and you give them guidance and leadership. If the dog's always a little bit afraid of dogs, then he's afraid of dogs. I mean, there's not much you can do about it. Let me see here. A lot of writing in the chat, guys. So I'm just kind of quickly sifting through. My new rescue would shake during a sit stay when cars went by. Now with loose leash walking, she confidently walks with me as cars go by. Yeah, that's good, Kathy. That's an example of, teaching your dog. Listen, these are the rules. All you have to do is worry about following the rules and everything is going to be okay. Michelle, I see you on here, causing trouble as always. For those of you that don't know, I know Michelle for a couple of years. I trained her dog, Hazard. I don't know why she named her dog Hazard, but she did. It was a Presa Canario puppy that she bought, and we've known Michelle a while, so Michelle's the real deal. Let's see here. I'm seeing some questions repeat themselves, so I think I'm screwing up here. My shepherd struggles with commands when I'm near other things he knows how to do. Example, heel, but I'll ask him to heel when I'm next to something he can crawl under or place onto to make him think. Okay, yeah, that's good. Look, if your dog struggles in a certain area, for sure, You want to challenge the dog. Okay, you're really good like this. Let's see if I can add a variable that's going to make you struggle a little bit and then get him through it and build his ability, right? I'm not an elite member, but you did train my Doberman Bentley off leash obedience a couple months ago. Do you think if you remember him, does he have what it takes to do any protection work? You know, I don't recall. The problem with the Dobermans is this. Like, I recall Bentley, you know, we didn't check him the way that you would really check a protection dog. He was a nice dog. A lot of Dobermans don't have the nerve or the drive to do the work. And that's the reality. I haven't seen very many good Dobermans, and I've seen a lot of them. In terms of protection, you know, as a family pet, he was a fantastic dog. You know, I would say this, you know, bring him by and we'll test him and we'll see. We'll see. If it's there, then we'll work with him. And if it's not, there's two types of there. You know, there's like, okay, you know, we work on, you know, we can work on this for a year and see where we get. And then there's, oh yeah, give me a few months and I'll have him shipshape, right? And I find that most Dobermans fall into the latter the first category where, you know, it's going to be kind of a little bit of a year of we training him maybe once a week or something like that. So usually for dogs like that, the recommendation, unless the dog's like really terrified or something like this, you come once a week and we do some training. I'm going to be opening up more protection training slots. You know, there's going to be some more opportunity for protection training for dogs that have the capability. If your dog doesn't have the capability, like I'm not doing it with your husky. I'm not, you know, going to do it with your golden retriever or whatever, or your mix. You know, but if you have a dog that's bred for it and a dog that has some capability, we are going to open more spots for that. Let's see here. Anyone heard of Jerry Bradshaw? Yeah, Jerry's been in the business for a while. He's the guy who invented PSA, so you know, I would say he's a legitimate guy. Did I hear about Ty Cal Canine? Yeah, I heard about that. I saw that video. Basically, it's a guy, and I think he's in Texas or something. I guess he's like trained some celebrities' dogs or whatever. And there's like this video of him where I guess he has this 6-month-old Malinois puppy. He's trying to make it let go of the sleeve. I guess the puppy lets go a little bit slow, and the guy basically lifts the puppy up by the leash over his shoulder and fly swats the puppy down into the ground. And I watched that, and I was just like, what in God's name is this idiot doing? You know, look, there's, you know, a lot of people that talk online about this type of stuff. They're not honest. Like, you know, they will vilify any dog trainer that does anything or is seen doing anything on video. Like, you know, and I'll talk about an example of that in a second. But there's nothing that would justify what this guy did. Okay, number one, it's a 6-month-old puppy. At 6 months of age, you're building the puppy up. You're not breaking the puppy down. So he doesn't want to let go. Good. If I have a puppy that doesn't want to let go of things, I'm happy. I say, great. He doesn't want to let go of things. If he wants to let go too much, I'm like, that's not so good. I like a dog to fight me to let go of things because it means he really wants it. It means he has good working drives. It means he has a good spirit. And that's the type of dog that I'm going to build before I kind of start to scale him back and put some control on him, number one. Number two, what he did to correct the puppy. There are corrections that are productive. And, you know, some people might, you know, shudder at the idea of correcting a dog. I certainly am not one of those people. And, you know, in some cases, quite harsh corrections. I'm very comfortable with them. A 6-month-old puppy. And that's not a correction. When he lifted the dog over his shoulder and slammed it into the ground and broke its hip, that's not a correction. I don't know what you call that. I think it's criminal. You know, it's definitely something I would sincerely hope that, you know, maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know. That's terrible. That's terrible. Like, there's just, unfortunately, it's just reprehensible behavior, and there's no acceptance of that. But I will say this. In many cases, most of these exposés on dog trainers, and I'm not talking about this situation. This situation is pretty cut and dry. But in many cases, you see things where somebody like gets a whole bunch of, so like recently in Finland, there were some like crazy animal rights people. They put some hidden cameras up in some of the dog clubs, and they got like a bunch of like videos of like famous trainers, slapping dogs and giving the dog a correction on a pinch collar and stuff like this. And basically all they did was they cut just the correction. They removed all other parts of the training, and they just took like the 1 second of the correction, and they took all the corrections and they daisy chained them together into this big long video, and put it out there. And a lot of these trainers are world champions, so on and so forth. And listen, these guys are called all over the world. They do seminars, and in many cases they're brought dogs that have behavioral problems, and these are working dogs. So when the working dog has a behavioral problem, it can be quite a dangerous thing, and they're dealing with the problem, right? And in many cases, a correction is called for. In many cases, a harsh correction is called for, because one strong correction beats 10 small ones. Most of the dogs got the way they got because of people nagging them instead of being clear. Knock that shit off. Don't do it ever. Ever, 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 ever. Instead, stop, please, no, bad puppy, right? This is what people do, and they turn little paper tigers into monsters, right? So a lot of the time these guys have to go in there, they clean up somebody else's mess. Anyways, these guys, their body of work speaks for themselves. This video comes out, all of a sudden I see trainers all over my Facebook. Oh, look at these terrible things. It's so reprehensible. There's no excuse. It's like, what are you talking about? You were at the seminar. I've seen what you do with your dog. I've seen what you do with other people. I saw you sitting there, and you didn't have a word to say when he was training, so-and-so's dog, right? So people are very two-faced and let's say hypocritical when it comes to that stuff. But that has nothing to do with this specific instance that we're talking about. There's literally no excuse for what we just talked about. Like that Ty Cal stuff is crazy. I think his dog training career is about to hit a bit of a speed bump. Let's see. I've never seen a dog possessive about furniture that the dog is never been on. If I'm eating food and don't give it, she will try to bite me. Rolling records, you need to go and find a dog trainer to help you. That's not something that I can help you with online. Maybe you watch my elite course and you'll get some ideas there. No matter how much or how hard I correct a dog with a prong, my German Shepherd is always half a step in front of me, foraging, always responsive to turns or sits while heeling, perfect loose leash walking too. Okay, so the foraging is the issue. Well, I would say if your dog can pull a left turn every single time, no, absolutely not. I would say that your dog isn't foraging. If your dog can't pull a left turn, if you're tripping over your dog when you turn left, then your dog is foraging. So generally with foraging, I do fast slows, if you're struggling physically with the pinch collar, then progress to the e-collar like we show in the course, right? And follow those instructions, fast slows and a lot of left turns, and that will fix your foraging problem. Okay, let's see here. 11-week-old German Shepherd. I don't know if it's enough food, Gracie. You have to, you look at your puppy and you tell me, right? Like, is he skinny? Is he fat? His body will tell you if it's enough food. I want to get into dog protection work. And where to start? I want to learn so much because I recently got into dog training. Well, look, if you want it bad enough, it's out there, my friend. There's many, many ways. There's many, many ways to get into the protection training game. Go to seminars. Get yourself a dog that can do the work. Join a dog sport that's protection based. Or go to a dog trainer that does the work. There's 100 ways that you can do it. Buy online trainings. It's a long journey. You need to basically get yourself in front of a lot of dogs and build your experience. This is how you do it. Can you talk about OCD in the working breeds? My 8-month-old gets obsessed with digging the ground and will scream and claw at the ground for hours if left to it. Any tips for managing or discouraging? Yeah, I mean, neurotic behavior like that is the result of two things. Either the dog's understimulated, or if the dog legitimately is very well stimulated, like you're providing the dog with adequate, what's the word? Adequate stimulation through good training, then it's time for sure to look into positively punishing the behavior very severely until the dog stops finding satisfaction in that behavior. Let's see here. Heidi Kim. Yes, I do. Fast, slow, sits all through the walks, perfect every time. Well, if he's perfect, then he ain't fortunate. Can I talk about potty training on the owner schedule? Well, in my puppy course, I talk about it pretty heavily, Stephanie. I think I pretty much covered it all in my puppy course. But basically, I don't allow my dogs to tell me when they have to go to the bathroom because they lie. So I just let them out frequently throughout the day, and it's just that simple. Obviously, if the dog acts out of character, runs to the door, starts crying, okay, I know there's something wrong, right? Like the dog obviously has the dog obviously has to go because it's out of character. But, for sure, it's not, I don't allow the dog to decide when they're going to go outside. Caitlin, 18-month-old German Shepherd, leads on me in heel. How do I correct the leaning on my left leg? Very easy. Every time he leans, turn left and knock him with your knee and tap the e-collar every single time. And every time he leans, just about turn left, catch him with the left knee. You lift your left knee up and catch him with it, e-collar. Your knee becomes hot, he stays away from your knee. And I show that in my elite course. I'm pretty sure I do. No, I wouldn't use a training stick for this, Karina. Not for this. Especially if the dog is as described. Let me see here. Just going through the chat, guys. The world can do without so-called trainers that physically abuse dogs like the man you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, look, it's terrible. There's no two ways. I'm not Mr. Rainbows and butterflies, that's for sure. But that stuff was crazy. Yesenia Vales. Hi, Haz. I just got a pup from you. Oh, yeah. You got Cypher, if I remember correctly. I just saw Cypher today. We did a little bit of work with her. I'm a member and have watched the videos. Do you follow a typical void schedule of the age range? Stephanie. Oh. No, I mean, look, if it's a puppy's like 8 weeks old, obviously you have to let them out more frequently than if the puppy's 12 weeks old and 16 weeks old and so on and so forth. But I'll tell you this, at 8 weeks old, I wake up once per night. All right? By 12 weeks old, I don't wake up at night anymore, right? Obviously, you wake up early, but I'm not waking up at night. It's just that simple. But at the end of the time, at the end of the day, some people, man, like, they're up every 2-3 hours. That's crazy. For sure, obviously, you also control the dog's food and water intake. And if you control the dog's food and water intake, you don't have a problem, right? Okay. Like, for instance, I wouldn't, give the dog a whole bunch of food and water before bed. I'll make sure the dog's pretty much empty before bed. So the dog, of course, should be able to do 8 hours of sleep in the crate, even at 12 weeks of age. How many times per day, minimum and maximum, should a high drive dog like a Dutch Shepherd or Malinois be trained? Yeah, twice probably. You think I do. People always are in the mindset that I have to exercise the crap out of my dog because he's this breed or that breed. I don't do that. On average, I would say I train my dog once per day, right? Like when I'm getting ready for a trial, I'll go 2-3 times a day. But on average, I'll have one major training session per day with Gage, and he's about as high drive as it gets. Oftentimes with Dizzy, I won't even I won't even have a training session because I don't have time, right? Um, that's pretty much it. When you have good structure with your dog, you don't have to worry about like exercising them for them to behave, right? Like you can control their behavior. Um, Sarah, not sure if you remember my Aussie Lilu. I do because of the name Lilu. Funny name. I do remember her. What about her? Let's see here. Darius, is the dog Kojak still available? Well, he was never for sale, my friend. That dog was sold. I was just training him for the guy who owns him, and he's back with the guy. He turned out great. Defensive dog, but he can sure bite and he can sure hit. That's there as well. Okay. Damien, you sent me an email, and I didn't respond. That doesn't sound like me at all. No, I'm kidding, my friend. I'm terrible with that kind of stuff. Let me see here. Damien, let me see here if I can find you quickly. USP. I don't see a question from you, Damien. I see a registration, but I do not see a question from you in my inbox. So, I don't know. I don't know where you put that. Would you consider her sensitive to corrections? Are you talking about Lilu? Yeah, Lilu's sensitive. I feel like she loses my trust easily. No, if she's sensitive to corrections, it's not a loss of trust. It's the dog's. If the dog chooses to shut down, you need to basically not allow it, right? It's not it's not like she doesn't trust you because you corrected her. Maybe unless the correction was mistimed or the dog doesn't understand. It's just being consistent with the dog. Listen, if you are good, everything's good. If you're not, you're not. If you mean that the dog shows like if you correct her for reacting or something, and she shows like a suppressed behavior, there's nothing wrong with that. It means that she doesn't like the correction, which is the whole idea of a correction. If your dog shakes off a correction like nothing happened, you didn't really correct your dog. Let's see here. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's see here. Going through the questions, guys. Is it possible to take your elite course without using an e-collar or prong? They are prohibited in my country. You can use a choke chain, but you have to apply some aversive. You do. Like you have to apply some aversive to your dog. There has to be some ability to put pressure on your dog. Otherwise, you might as well just go and take, whatever positive only trainer in Sweden selling, online training or something. Because at the end of the day, there's no way to effectively train a dog properly without using some form of pressure. So you can use for sure choke chain and a line or something like this. If the choke chain's illegal, then I don't know what to tell you. I know a lot of people in Europe do my training, and they use like scarves and collar covers, and they sell collar covers. Like Martin System e-collars. They're in Belgium, I think, or Holland, one of the two. And the e-collar is prohibited there, but their e-collar looks exactly like a flat collar, and the remote is literally a tiny button on your finger. So, I'm not telling you to break the law, but you got to do what you got to do, right? I have 2 white Swiss Shepherds. My male dog resource guarding my female dog and does not accept when someone touches her. Problem. Well, your problem is that you're allowing people to touch your dog that doesn't want to be touched. That's problem number 1. And I can't do harsh corrections around other people. Well, I disagree. I do them. right? But at the end of the day, I also don't set my dogs up for situations where it's not fair. USPS 924. Oh, I'm happy that your dog's no longer reactive. That's great news. I'm actually surprised, to be honest, by how many of you guys were able to use the reactive course and stop the reactivity. Maybe I'm just a little bit jaded by dealing with so many people that you tell them what to do, and then the next week you see them and they're not doing any of the things that you told them to do, and then they wonder why. But, you know, I'm pleasantly surprised by how many of you guys are really making it work with the reactive course. Like, the information is all good information, but, you know, I find a lot of people struggle to put good information to use because they're, you know, they kind of like to go their own way, so to speak. Boom, boom, boom. A prong or e-collar will not give you a better result for focused heeling. Understanding how to train focused heeling will give you a better result. Let's see here. My dog started to refuse to do aus. My dog started to refuse to do aus. She's done it 100 times, but recently doesn't want to do that. German Shepherd, 11 years old. She's 11. Let her keep it. I'm kidding. Say no and correct her, right? That's what you do. You have to correct the dog. I receive nothing but smiles and compliments from law enforcement. You know, Matt, it's funny. I get a lot of clients. They call me and they're like, oh, you know, we were passing the police. We saw a police dog handler. He was so impressed with our dogs, so on and so forth. You know, at the end of the day, like I always say, the obedience that we do, the functional obedience is for everybody, whether it's a service dog or whether it's just a pet dog, correct? Control is control. And when people see it, they know that they've seen it. Kevin Perry, how do you prevent dogs from fixation on sleeves? Well, it's pretty easy. I get into the dog's emotion, right? And I teach him that's like, you're not biting me. You're not biting the sleeve, you're biting me. And if that's his mindset, then he doesn't care what I'm wearing, right? And then of course there's other things that you do, but you know, suffice to say, it's not about the equipment. If you're thinking about equipment, you've already lost. Okay. Let's see here. Border Collie bitch, 6 years old. Hyper-focused on unfamiliar dogs and goes to dominant herding behavior. Get my elite off-leash course and stop letting your dog do that. It's that simple, my friend. How can I prevent her from getting involved in a fight? Well, I think I just answered your question. Leslie Rose, you have Zoltan. Oh! Uh-oh. Zoltan's mommy's in here. Zoltan's doing great. In the beginning, he was like, oh man, where am I? I'm surrounded by rough-looking guys. But now he's like, okay. You know, he's like a boy. He went to boot camp, and he found himself. When my dog breaks a sit, I tap the e-collar, but she doesn't sit again. She's e-collar conditioned. Is it because she doesn't know distance commands, and this happens when I'm not in front of her? Veronica, are you in my course? Elite 1-year-old Shar-Pei Amstaff will sulk and not move off the lounge when I put e-collar prong on. Never corrected with either. Well, put it on and kick her off the lounge. Just call me Amber. She will redirect onto me. Yeah, of course, it's a border collie. That's what they do. They redirect. You have to know how to deal with this. So you need to take my reactive course and my lead off leash obedience course, and we will show you what to do. Okay, guys. I think we're going to roll things up. Is withholding food ever okay for dog training? Yeah. As long as it's not like I'm going to starve my dog to death. As long as it's, yeah, my dog's going to be hungry for one day because my dog... Like, I don't ever withhold food, right? I offer food, and if the dog doesn't want to eat, I don't feed the dog. So, for instance, I'll say, let's say I'm working on a sit. So I have the food in my hand, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to lure you into a sit. And then if the dog says, I'd rather not, and I don't care about your food, I said, no problem. Bye. I put the dog to bed, all right? Or put the dog in the crate. And then maybe a few hours later, I bring the dog and the food again. I say, do you want your food now? You can sit. No, you don't want to sit. You don't want to follow the food around. You don't want to work. No problem. Go away. And we do it again. So I'm offering food constantly. It's the dog's choice whether they choose to eat or not. But I don't hide the food, and I don't starve them. Karina, I'm happy to hear that. That's great news. I'm just... M. Dugan. Wrapping up week 6, proofing. What might be the next goals for the obedience once we're done the course? Once you have the foundation together, once you have a dog who's completely off-leash obedience trained, then it is time, my friend, to begin to open your mind to other things. So maybe you try some sport work, maybe you try some tricks, maybe you do some tracking. There's a lot of places that you can go with your dog if you want to keep going, or you can just stop there. How can I get some assistance for my online membership? I accidentally signed up for the wrong combo. I haven't looked at anything yet because I'm hoping I can switch for what I intended to get. Send me a personal email at hasothman@shieldk9.ca. Okay? I'm going to write my email in the chat. Okay. All right, guys. I really appreciate all the love. I appreciate all the interactions and discussions. And I hope that I helped some of you. Sorry, you guys are still popping off here in the chat. Either way, I think I've done what we could do here today. You guys have a good weekend, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching.